for this material, like I really wasn't thinking about an audience. I wasn't like, I was compelled to make it like following this like pretty intense breakup, and I was going through a lot of like dark stuff on my own. And it sounds cliche, but I literally just needed to make it.
Hello and welcome to Where the Living Room Used to Be, a podcast about Rhode Island's music scene. Hey everyone, it's James. On this episode, I chat with Rafay Rashid, where we cover some early influences that led him to music and performance. We also cover the path Ravi Shavi has taken with regards to their lineup and releases. Plus, we discover how a friendship with members of Deer Tick led to the start of their band Happiness, as well as Rafay's other musical projects. Most importantly, we take a deep dive into Kitchen Weapons, the new solo album he's set to release on May 26th. It really is a great record with a meaningful backstory, so I hope you enjoy the episode and learn a little bit more about that here, and pick up the vinyl via Almost Ready Records when it comes out. As always, please tell a friend about the show if you like it, and share via your favorite social media platform. You can follow me on Instagram at Where the Living Room Used to Be for some show flyers, photos, and a whole lot more from Rafay's time in music. Thanks.
Yeah, my earliest memories of music beyond just hearing it, in grocery stores and on the radio was in my parents' friends' living rooms. So my dad, who moved here from Pakistan along with my family when I was 5, he would go over to his friends' houses and bring the kids, and they would just start dancing eventually at some point to random music, sometimes Pink Floyd, sometimes Santana, sometimes Elton John, Deep Purple. I remember being a band in there in all of this. Maybe some Billy Joel, and they would just, have a good time and party in living rooms. And I just remember music was sort of the activating agent for these living room parties that my dad's friends used to have with them.
Okay. And about how old were you? Do you remember?
I'm thinking like probably around from the age of probably like 6 to 12.
Okay. And would you go out and dance with them, or were you just more of an observer with it, or did you get into it as well?
I think I would get into it here and there. There'd be sometimes, and the parties would get more like rambunctious. I'd probably would be a little bit more separated, or when the cards and the smoking cigarettes came out, like that's when like the kids would probably not be around as much.
Yeah.
But I was a rowdy kid myself. I was shy, but I was rowdy, so I would also probably be jumping on my parents' friends' shoulders and all that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess it just kind of comes to mind. I mean, I've been fortunate to see you play quite a bit. And, from my observation and just from others, like you yourself are quite well known for your performance, like your dancing, like you just kind of give it your all. Like, do you think that some of that stuff ties in, like just seeing the stuff at an age and just like being able to express yourself more freely at that time? Like, have you pulled any connection from that, or?
Yeah, I think quite literally I've stolen dance moves from my dad.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, like I can definitely trace that. I don't think the moves have a name per se, but like Yeah, he was kind of known as like, he was my early model of somebody who could sort of command the attention of the room by just like dance the way he would dance. And it was always like this sort of there was always a weird element to it in terms of some of the dances were a little bit like, I just hadn't seen them anywhere before. So I don't know where he was calling them from. I'm still not sure if I've seen a lot of them anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, it seems like it's helped out, but yeah, when did guitar and singing or any other types of like instruments come into your life?
Yeah, so I mean, probably similarly to a lot of people in my generation. I'm 33 now, but you know, skateboards and guitar has sort of like came hand in hand. But I remember even since I was in 6th grade, I wanted to like be in a band, and we would have band rehearsals, but not play anything or have any instruments. But around the age of 12, around the age of 13, I think I got my first guitar and didn't really start playing it all the time until I was about 15, 16.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you grew up in Warwick, right?
I did, yeah. So yeah, Pakistan to age 5, then 5 to age 8 in New York, then 8 onwards in Rhode Island.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you just were kind of like hanging out with some other kids that were skating, and yeah, I'm with you. It was the same kind of thing. Like when I was a teenager, like I was a very bad skateboarder. I could barely even call myself a skateboarder, but we'd hang out and skate, and then we would just be like, well, let's start a band, and then we'd go to my basement and start playing, and yeah, before that was how I taught myself how to play drums, was just learning with this band. Basically, is that basically what you're saying, of like you just had these friends and we're just hanging out, and it was just that connection with them of creating, wanting to create with them in some way?
Yeah, I think those were the really early on days, like the very first instances. I remember somebody came at me with that skate magazine called CCS, and then they also had a CD, and we're like, this CD is great to skate to. Like,
yeah,
it was great to skate to. So like, yeah, that was like early pop punk, and then I was listening to like a lot of like probably like Nirvana and like System of a Down and random bands like that.
Yeah, well, definitely, it was like super well connected. Like I remember watching old like skate videos, and it was just so intertwined. Of like, that was how you found out about new music, was because it would be the background tracks to skaters doing crazy tricks or whatever. You'd be like, who's this band? And yeah, it'd be some punk stuff or some hip hop or whatever. But yeah. So what kind of music were you playing then? Was it punk or grungy stuff or?
Actually, right. My first band was probably the most experimental band I've ever had. And
oh, really?
In some ways, I still use it as a model for something to return to eventually, which I still haven't. But
that's cool.
Yeah, it was called Yelling Game.
Okay.
And we were like 14, and we actually, I think our first gig outside of Warwick was at the old living room. And
nice.
Yeah, our drummer used to play a steel chair and bongos, and our keyboardist, he wouldn't even face the crowd, and then the rest of us would sort of be doing these chants and yelling, and admittedly a lot of it was like immature humor based songs that were meant to like push buttons, so we were kind of infusing it with like a punk spirit, but it didn't have like the punk motif of like distorted guitars and whatnot. It was just kind of making random noise.
Okay.
Yeah. But then, like in high school probably is when I started, when we started booking shows at AS220 and whatnot, and I had been playing for a bit more. That's when I was incorporating more like traditional song writing structures and writing in the vein of like, I was listening to a lot of, I think, early 2005, 2006 indie music. So I got into like Animal Collective, like Arcade Fire, Hot Chip, TV on the Radio, like all these bands that were big like right around then. And then found those, and like who were they influenced by? And of course it was just the greats like David Bowie and Prince or whoever else. So we were, by the time I was like 17, we were just kind of incorporating the pantheon of songwriters.
Yeah. So you did that for quite a while then, like for an early band like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we had Yelling Game for about like, I think 3 years almost.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then what was your next step after that? Like, or what kind of pulled you away from that? Were you looking to do something that was more structured in a sense, or did it just, as things go? I mean, it sounds like it kind of went through the end of high school, and obviously stuff kind of shifts with, the personnel of a band. But
stuff shifted. Because at that point I was 17, I was only able to sing, so like I didn't have the confidence to play guitar, so I couldn't really like make my own songs. I'd always had to like mouth something to my bandmates to see if they could transcribe what I was talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Or I just dug what they were playing and started adding stuff. So I guess by the time I was like 18, I went away to SUNY Purchase, and by then I had enough like basic knowledge of guitar where I could incorporate my influences and kind of actually translate some of the ideas that were happening in my head. And so then, I was writing more in the vein of like the Clash and the Talking Heads, things that I could make with a bit more immediacy and were more along the lines of like what I was listening to. So I got a little bit more punk, but also like new wave influence around then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when did Ravi Shavi start? I mean, that was around 2012-ish or so. Was that that your next band then, when you kind of...
Yeah, it was. I think our very first gig was 2011, and so I think I had written all the demos at Purchase like in 2010, and then had brought them, formed a little band in 2011, and then we played like, I think it was Liberty Fest in 2011.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was sort of our first gig.
Nice. Yeah, what was the original lineup of the band, and were they just some old friends, or?
Yeah, I think it was a mixed bag, but the lead guitarist was Jim Galvin, who's a dear friend of mine still, who I grew up and he played in all my high school bands as well. And the bassist was Wilson Keithline, who's a great bass player, and he was in one of my high school bands. Another person who was in it, who I think you might know from Providence scene, is Muggs Fogarty. So yeah, they were in the initial lineup as well as a vocalist, and we had met in New York when they were attending the new schools, and I was at Purchase.
Oh, okay.
And who else? Oh yeah, Joe Carula was playing drums, and I think my buddy Samson, who wasn't really a musician, but I always had like one or two people in the band who didn't play music at all, just like singing and dancing around.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That was
yeah, and from what I've seen, the research I've done, it just seems that you came out pretty strong from the onset. I mean, granted, yeah, you said that you did that show in like 2011, but it seems that you got pretty busy, already recording some stuff pretty quick and doing a lot of shows. Can you talk about that, early era of Ravi Shavi, like those first few years? It seems that you were just doing a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think we packed in a lot of the formative legwork right then.
Yeah.
And we recorded our first album in the barn that we used to practice in high school, but we recorded it in like 2 days, and had it mixed and ready to go. And by then people had started showing up to shows, and we were just a hungry band, so we were just playing everything all the time. And people started showing up, and then I think then we self-released a couple of EPs, because we pretty soon after we formed, I think about a year or two in, we really got along with Atlantic Thrills, who are another Providence band.
Yeah.
And so they were like sort of the other band who was doing kind of garage rock influenced music, and so we really saw eye to eye when we started collaborating and playing together. And so Eric recorded our next album, which was an EP called Independent. And at the same time, we had recorded another EP called Blackout Deluxe with our engineer Jesse McFadden, who did the first album. So we had like a dual EP release night at the Columbus, which was really fun, and that took us, I think that's almost taken us already to like 2016.
2016,
I think.
Yeah. Could you actually talk a little bit more about that? Just because I've never seen a band do like a dual EP release, and how you kind of did like sets and you took a break and had some guest, performers. Roz played it. Alec Redfern played it, people that you have like this, deeper relationships now and, collaborators now. But yeah, I don't know, that particular show kind of stood out to me. So I don't know if you can talk just a little bit more about kind of the thought behind how you're going to do this and releasing, two separate things on that same night. And you had like a photo shoot booth or something like that too, or I don't know, it just seemed like an awesome time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of those years were kind of, I know the word like manic is overused. But like, that's sort of what was fueling it a lot of the times. And, we weren't operating with really a keen sense of like management or publicity or anything. It was just kind of shooting from the hip. And we just happened to have two EPs ready at the same exact time. So we were like, we had been working with Eric, but then we had worked with Jesse on two different EPs, and they seemed like they had enough of a different sound. And I think our drummer had changed between then. Ben Tucker played on Blackout Deluxe, which was called Courage at that time, and Andy Wilmarth had played on Independent. So they represented two different iterations, and they just happened to be at the same time. And I just thought it was a novel concept to do, and it turned out people responded to that. I think just the idea of doing doing two EPs didn't strike me as weird when I was thinking about putting it out. But then when we did it, it occurred to me, okay, this is a little different than the format. I think the Columbus is the one who proposed, like, why don't we do like an evening with Ravi Shavi? And I was like, that's a great idea.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it is something that is kind of a new idea. I mean, granted, you did this a while ago, but just something that I haven't seen other bands do, and it makes complete logical sense. So it's cool that you embraced it in that way, and it seems like others embraced it. But yeah, I mean, I guess kind of with that, since you're just kind of bringing up some different members right now and that have gone that have been part of the band. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about some of the other members and how people have come in and come out, and what that's kind of meant to you and meant to your sound as a band?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first person that comes to mind is my good friend and our lead guitarist in the band, Nick Politelli. And so before him, it was basically just me writing for the first album. But when he came in around pretty soon after, like those first 2 years felt like a decade, but like he came in probably right at the end of 2012, early 2013.
Okay.
And so he's been in the band since, and he's a really talented songwriter. And the first time I heard him playing guitar, I had heard guitar from another room at a party that I was at, and I was just taken by the sound of the playing. And so I followed the sound, and it led me to him on a couch. And so I asked him to be in the band, like right there, and he said yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So kind of, his style, I think he was a much more advanced guitar player and still is than I am. And he's really influenced by folk and ragtime music.
Okay.
So he had gotten his start playing early gigs in London when I think he had like spent some time there when he was around the age of like 19, 20. And so he came back with that sort of flavor and introduced that into our music. So, now if you hear most of our songs, anytime there's like a finger picked pattern, that's Politelli. And then of course, like he also loved the Strokes, so you probably hear that a bunch. And Ripper Teens and Arctic Monkeys and bands that I also really like, but he really loved those bands. So, yeah. So he came in and has been with us since. And then there's been obviously so many people who have who have cycled through the band that I won't name them all.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, a couple of the people who were formative for sure were you know, Ben Tucker, our drummer, Andrew Wilmarth, our drummer for a bit, and then after them too, it was Nick Idden. And so unfortunately, we never got to record any music with Nick Idden before his passing. So those guys, and then Shah Jahan Khan has come into the fold since 2020 on guitar as well. So now we've become a 5-piece.
Okay, yeah.
And of course, our bassist Brian Fielding, who we all lived in a house. Me, Brian, and Nick Politelli lived in the same house for several years. So all these guys, you know, were super important.
Yeah.
To the sound.
Yeah. Did you guys, when you were living together, is that where you guys practice? Or did you have a separate space, or were you guys just, you know, working together while you were together there?
Yeah, we all lived there. We practiced in the basement, and we also threw shows in the basement at a space called Headquarters for a little bit.
Oh, right on. Yeah, cool. Yeah. With your most recent album with Ravi Shavi, Special Hazards, that was released in July of 2020. But when was that recorded, and where was that recorded?
Yeah, so Special Hazards was sort of a kind of a last-ditch effort to compile all the stuff we had made since putting out those EPs, since putting out Independent and Blackout Deluxe. We had amassed all these demos over the course of, like, I think from 2016 to about 20 well, now I don't want to get the timeline of this wrong. We had amassed a bunch of demos, basically, I think even from like 2014 to 2017, I want to say. And we had cut down like about 80 to 90 demos down to 25 or so songs. And then we recorded about, I think, like 18 of those songs in a week. I believe, I want to say it was at the very end of 2016, but I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then what was the process then of putting that out?
Well, it took a long time.
Yeah. Oh, see, that was the answer. All right.
Yeah. So it took like 3 years. And I think partially that was because we were on a delay with Almost Ready, who we had been working with. So they had sort of put out our 2 EPs on vinyl after we had already self-released them.
Okay.
So we had sort of had like a 2-year delay from when we had finished recording stuff to like when it was out via Almost Ready.
Okay.
So that accounts for at least 2 of those years. And then the other year was, I think, our album art. And I think everyone was just sort of like not really sure, having already put out 3 albums, like not really sure what the next step was in terms of like, are we going to kind of like try to shop this around to labels? Are we going to put it out through Almost Ready? Or, you know, where does music fit into our lives as far as like our other jobs go and careers and things like that? So all of that combined with the fact that, like, you know, it's a tricky process to put out an album anytime. You know, eventually it did come out in July 2020.
No, that's great.
Yeah. We finally started writing some new material. We have like a whole new lineup right now. You know, Nick Politelli and I are still in it. But we have Chuck Perry on bass. We have John Ferrone on drums. And Shah Jahan Khan on second lead guitar. So we finally started writing some new material and hope to get in the studio at the end of the year, have a few shows. But beyond that, yeah, just excited about the future.
1, 2, 3, 4.
you've done quite a few shows with Deer Tick back in the day. I mean, you played some Dude Smash shows. I can't remember if you did both of them or one of them, but you have connected with them pretty early on, and you currently play in a band, Happiness, which is Dennis, Chris, and Ian from Deer Tick, and you're in it as well as a singer and guitarist. Can you, I guess, kind of talk about that band, Happiness, and how that kind of came about? I mean, as I was just saying, like, you've seemed like you've been friendly and been connected with them, but how did the idea for that band come together for you?
Yeah, I think it's still quite a mystery how it happened. We actually played our sort of our last show at Askew recently, not like the final show, but just our latest show. And we were talking about how it had been 10 years, and I had one idea of how it was started, and then somebody else had another idea. So I think we were just compelled to make music. We had enough friendships between us. And the Columbus had a show. I think it was like one of their early revival shows, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And somebody had suggested, because they heard that me and Ian, I think, had been making demos, like, why don't we like play together in a band? And so then we did Happiness, and I think it was formed for that show, from what I remember. Yeah.
Well, we're recording this now, so that's the answer now. So until any of them do a podcast about Happiness, then this is a definitive answer.
Right. I mean, they can try to to supersede that answer. But.
Yeah. But yeah, what's it like writing in that way? I mean, you're Ian writes some stuff, you write some stuff. It sounds like you're doing that as well with Nick and Ravi Shavi. But how is it different? How is it the same as working with other projects that you're in?
I think with Happiness, it's a strange thing that happens with the side. It's like a side project in our minds, I think, because so in a way it's like anything we bring to that band, there's a reason why it didn't get brought to the other band, like why it didn't get brought to Deer Tick or Ravi Shavi. So I think maybe that means that we tend to put our stranger stuff into Happiness. And so the songs I do find like are more idiosyncratic in general, and like we just take a chance more. There's more of a case of like, the fuck it, let's just like let it rip and see what happens. To be honest, we don't write that much actively for that project, but I hope that we pick it up again. But when we were writing for it, it was a very fruitful time, and a lot of it was done like while we were on these small runs of shows. So like I think the album Live contains many songs that were written like kind of on the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, were they written in a collaborative sense? Like, were you sitting with Ian and like writing them together, or were you like kind of writing, because you obviously, we're going to talk about your solo record. Ian has his own solo music as well. So I mean, or were you writing solo songs and then having Dennis and Chris fill it out, or were you like all four of you getting together and creating the songs, kind of jamming together and developing them?
I think it was a bit of both. Like Dennis and Ian and I had each brought like 2 or 3 songs.
Okay.
For those very initial sessions at Dennis's house in Pawtucket, and so we just jammed on those. Kind of maybe helped each other out with like a verse or a bridge somewhere. But then once we started playing shows is when we needed longer set lists. So we just made more songs, and those were more collaborative. Like those were like, let's tag team not only the arrangement, but we'll tag team the lyrics, and we'll even take turns like singing the verses, which is always fun to me because I feel like that doesn't happen in rock music and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, since you kind of just brought it up, you're going to be going on tour with Deer Tick. You've got a string of dates around the Northeast. A lot of I know the Rhode Island shows are sold out, but if you're listening not in Rhode Island, please go and check out the dates in New York and Massachusetts and stuff like that to go and check out your shows. But what do you have planned for that, or what are you most looking forward to of that string of shows?
Yeah, so this string of shows will be the first time we play any of this Kitchen Weapons material live. Mm-hmm. Kitchen Weapons being the solo album, the debut solo album, I'm I think equal parts kind of terrified and excited about doing it, because songs are vulnerable. They're kind of musically walking or treading into areas that Ravi Shavi has not, or Happiness either. So it's just kind of uncharted territory for me. And I'm excited about that.
Like with the content of the songs, like the lyrics, or
kind of a bit of everything. Like,
yeah, okay.
I wrote the songs on piano. I didn't really know how to play piano when I wrote them.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So I'm not playing piano on the tour, but because they came about in this way that was, new and unique to me. Like I just don't have a precedent for it, but they're sounding really good. And Chris and Dennis from Deer Tick are actually going to be playing bass and drums, so they'll be the rhythm section on the tour.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and super excited to have some of the collaborators on the album also be in the band as well. Namely Liz Eisenberg, who also plays in Huntress and Holder.
Oh, yeah. And
has her own project Triptychs. So she's going to be playing piano and singing as well. And then we have Shah Jahan from Ravi Shavi and the Caminos playing guitar. So
cool.
Yeah, it's like my dream cast for a band. So I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with regard to the record, you're kind of talking about the people that played on it, but it definitely seems like you were able to take a lot more liberty with what you were creating on this, and there's a lot more sounds, like there's a lot more strings and horns. Like who else like played on the album? Did you bring in some outside folks to do this, or do you just have some super talented friends that covered all that stuff? Or you mentioned Liz, but
yeah, definitely the super talented friends, I would say. Yeah. So the people who played on the album so Dennis produced it and mixed it.
Dennis Ryan.
Yep, Dennis Ryan of Deer Tick played drums, mixed, produced it, as well as co-wrote some of the arrangements. And Chris Ryan and Amato Zino kind of split bass duties on the album. So a lot of the upright bass is Amato and the electric bass is Chris.
Okay.
They wrote some really amazing parts for it. Robbie Kroll, he recorded these tremendous synth parts and horns as well from Nashville. So he used to play keyboards in Deer Tick as well.
Okay.
And he just plays in so many other big bands that I can't even keep track of them. Florence Wallace played violin. And then we have Steve Delmonico played some acoustic guitar.
Nice.
I think that might cover it in terms of.
Okay.
I hope I didn't leave anyone out.
But with regard to that, like it's definitely like recognizable, I guess, like it's for what you're doing, but it seems that you did allow more space. Like some of the songs, Monogamy and Pain Palace, like they just have these like longer outros that or didn't seem like they would fit with like a Ravi Shavi, like compact 2 to 3, maybe 4 minute long song. Was that like an intentional thing as you were coming into this project of wanting to kind of explore more sounds and have more of that, I'd say soundscapey type stuff to it, versus it just being this compact song and like here's a neat package of, garage poppy stuff or whatever, like how much did you want to evolve with that, or did it just kind of come out naturally as you were writing this and just say, I want this to repeat, for another minute or two or whatever it is at the end of a song?
Yeah, I think I did feel sort of untethered to this idea of a neat package. That's kind of what I had been doing for Ravi Shavi for so long. And for this material, like I really wasn't thinking about an audience. I wasn't like, I was compelled to make it like following this like pretty intense breakup. And I was going through a lot of like dark stuff on my own. And it sounds cliche, but I literally just needed to make it. And so I think a lot of these like longer outros were just like me, like feeling the release in a while of making like that sort of like catharsis. So I probably just wanted to sit with that catharsis a bit longer and see where it went. And I think I knew also that we were gonna be tracking stuff over the initial tracks, so I wanted to leave space for other instruments to emerge and kind of build a dynamic that way. And also, sorry, I forgot before the last question about personnel on the album. Nick Politelli also played guitar. Ian O'Neill played lead guitar on Landline, and John McCauley played accordion on a song called City of Love.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I was actually going to bring that up, City of Love, because that song stands out to me. It's probably personally my favorite song on the album. So yeah, I just wanted to have you, I guess, talk about it, just because I particularly like that one. It just, I like where it sits on the album. I think that it just has a cool change in vibe to what you've been listening to prior. I mean, I guess we'll just say it is a fantastic record. People should be really excited about checking this out. Especially if you're a fan of Rafay or just a fan of anyone that he's mentioned that's part of this stuff. It's a really interesting record and what you explore. But yeah, can you talk a little bit about the song City of Love? Yeah,
for sure. I appreciate you saying that about the album. City of Love was about a prolonged fight that I had with my ex in Paris, or who was my ex while I was writing the song. And I don't know, I guess that's kind of the sort of the cheekiness, or like the almost like French up-tempo vibe that we were trying to translate with the piano part, and kind of just having fun with it. The song has, outlines like kind of a not so fun experience, but in sort of a fun, removed kind of way. I guess enough time had passed, and I just I felt like kind of making fun of myself and the whole idea of writing a breakup album on a piano. You know what I mean? Like, the cliche wasn't lost on me. So like, we even use the person's name in the song, and it was just like kind of like so overboard with the concept that I think it almost became like a parody of itself.
Obviously we talk a lot about music here, but just what music can do, just how this can help release these feelings and these thoughts, and kind of shift these moments in our lives that can be as painful as they are, whatever else it is, and just helping to kind of share that with others can be so helpful, I guess. So in that kind of context, it's just kind of rang true. But how long did it take you to write this album?
It was really quick. I don't know the exact amount of time, but in my memory, it feels like 2 weeks. I think it might be right around there. Yeah, it was basically relationship over. And then I moved back into the apartment that I lived in with all my bandmates, but most of my bandmates had moved out by then. And so I just kind of had this empty top floor apartment on the west side, and like in Eagle Square, actually. And yeah, just went downstairs and there was a piano that wasn't there before, and it was an upright, and the songs just kind of poured out one day after the next, and most of them were written in one day. So I think I had the whole album within a couple weeks, and then Dennis came over and engineered it right there on the spot.
Okay, it was recorded there, or
yeah, it was recorded in the basement.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that come about? Like working, was it something that you had kind of planned on working with Dennis? I mean, not that this album seemed like it was something that you were like, had a lot of foresight into writing this particular thing, but had you just always kind of had Dennis in the back of your mind of the engineer that you're going to be working with in this capacity? Because you've just worked with other people, Big Nice Studio and some other, people in the past, but was it just...
Yeah, I think Dennis, I just trusted him with the material, like the release. I was in a very like kind of raw place, and I've been through a lot with him, and I think he's someone who I knew could like handle that with care, but also like bring it to those places that I thought it could go to in terms of like the pop potential, I guess, as well. You know what I mean? So I think Dennis is a genius as far as everything goes. So I trust his taste with everything. So I think anything that I bring to him will like inevitably improve.
They think I'm Indian, babe, but I know you don't feel that way, 'cause half of our lives we've been talking on the landline. It never goes right. Oh, 10 years of shame, 10 years of flights, I'm taking it down. I'm chasing the light. Landline, if I could talk to you one more time, I ask you if you're doing fine out here on the landline.
But yeah, before I let you go, I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of other projects, just for the music history part of this. Back in, I guess maybe around like 2017, you played in a band called Lookers as well, which, had Muggs and Muggs Fogarty, Brian as well. And, it's kind of some of the people from Ravi Shavi, Brian and Nick and Florence Wallace, correct? Can you talk a little bit about that band and, just kind of the start and why you wanted to do that particular project?
Yeah, I think that just came about through Muggs and I's friendship that spanned almost I think 8 years or so by the time we had started writing that material, and from early on, I think we had already started collaborating. Muggs had written the lyrics to one of Ravi Shavi's first demos for a song called Birds. So I think the air collaboration was always was in the air. And I think we had only found the right time to do like a proper set of songs together. So we had written that first EP, Mirage, in that same basement at Alston Street in 2016. So and then the rest of the lineup just felt like the natural progression of thinking between people and peers that we trusted and admired.
Yeah. Were you writing with Muggs, or how was the process for that?
Yeah, we were just writing. I think just Muggs would take the sort of reign on the lyrics, and the melody, and I would do more of the musical arrangements and also contribute to melody. And we just sort of like crafted all the songs kind of in the box, sitting with a laptop and all of our gear in the basement. And, would just kind of, go in with the intention of making a song and come out hopefully with a demo. And I think we had come out with like 8 demos by the time we had started doing our first practices as a band.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm just so pumped on where they took it, like where the live band took it. And like they actually recorded the EP while I was doing an artist residency in Brussels. So like I just got to see this EP come to fruition from a distance, and I was like, oh well, it just goes to show like how many different ways things can come about when you bring people into the fold. We have studio time booked with Bradford at Big Nice in September, so we're going to record another EP.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you also have a project with Alec Redfern and Dustin Rooney. I'm probably going to butcher the name of it, so I'm just going to ask you to tell me the name of the band, or the name of the group.
Yeah, it's called HEVS. Inexplicably.
And so I mean, you've done shows with Alec, and so this has from what I've gathered, just a much different sound than other things that you've been a part of. Can you just talk a little bit about what that sound is, and what you get out of doing a project with those people?
Yeah, it's basically the sound has somehow been kind of like a hybrid of new wave and hip hop. Like our two genres, I don't think have mashed together that much in the past. It came about just, I think, through mutual admiration. And I know I've been a big fan and follower of Alec and Dusty, both since I started making music. And I think Dusty actually took the reins in having us gather in a space and start making music. So yeah, Dusty had been kind of like encouraging me to rap. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. So I was like, I'll give it a shot. And now it's sort of strayed away from rap into something else. I don't know if it's singing or talking or what. But, but yeah, again, kind of like happiness, but even more so like kind of using this project as a vessel for those ideas that don't necessarily make sense with anything else, or don't even make sense within HEVS, you know what I mean? So
okay.
Yeah, it's just a time for us to be like truly wild.
No, that's cool. I mean, you've done a bunch of shows around it. What else do you have lined up, or what do you see in the future for HEVS?
Yeah, HEVS. I mean, I hope we just make a record before the end of HEVS. You would think we would want to make at least one artifact, and I think probably I couldn't tell you if that'll happen, but I hope it does.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Last question I always ask, with everything that you've done, songwriting you've been a part of, and shows you've done, and whatever else it may be, like, what would you say has been your greatest musical accomplishment to this point?
To be honest, I would say probably Kitchen Weapons.
Nice.
Yeah, as far as recorded music goes, it would be that, as well as I'm super proud of the Lookers EP. And then as far as shows go, I would say probably getting a strange chance to play in Shanghai at an art museum in 2017 would probably top the list of surreal feeling experiences.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine what that'd be like, but that sounds pretty amazing. So
it's bizarre.
Well, Rafay, thank you so much for your time and sharing everything that you have to offer in music and in this little kind of time capsule of music in your life. But thank you so much.
Thanks so much, James. Appreciate that.
on a blue afternoon. Not a thing in my room. The ceiling stares back at me, and I feel complete. All of my friends evidently have moved on with their lives. Someone take me out tonight. Out back or under the moonlight. Oh, take me back to the pain. Pathless again. On a violet